Hello, I hope you find this video for handover on a Porsche Cayman 718 GT4 really useful. If you have any questions, please contact me or drop me a question in the comments. Starting on the outside of the car, you can open the front and rear luggage compartments in one of two ways, either via the key or via the inside door shuts, which I shall show you. By pressing and holding those two buttons, it will undo the front and rear luggage compartments there for you. They can also be released by the rear catch and the front catch just here. Lifting the buttons up and the front. Around the back on both the 718 Cayman and the Boxster, you can just simply lift the rear boot and that will give you access into the back. On the GT4 you'll notice that the rear tailgate opens slightly lower than on a normal coupe, and that's to give allowance for the rear spoiler. In the back you also have the covers for engine coolant and engine oil, which if you need to apply some, Mobil 1 fully synthetic. You might just be able to see that there is a red catch under the front of the luggage compartment, which just needs to be moved to the side before you can lift the front. And then you lift the front. With a normal Cayman or Boxster, I would recommend the same sort of short, firm close. With a GT4, they are a little bit more tricky, and you do at times need to give them a firm slam. The fuel filler cap opens and closes with the central locking of the car. When locked, it doesn't open. When unlocked, it will spring open for you. Give it a short twist to undo. This particular car has option code P11, which is 4 bucket seats. Obviously, for a car that has got adaptive sport seats, there'll be a different level of adjustment. On this one, we have got some small adjustment. We have seat height, which will raise and lower. One button here. We also have just here the adjustment to move the seat forwards and backwards. We also have adjustment on the steering column, which is found via the lever just under the steering column here. And that will allow you to move the steering column both in and out, as well as up and down. On the driver's door, we have operations for the mirrors and the windows, and we have the door pull, which on the GT4 has door pulls rather than door handles. It will be the same for the Boxster Spider. On the instrument binnacle, you can see we have a variety of information, starting with the rev counter in the centre, which is always the biggest dial, the digital speedometer, which is here, analog speedometer, which is here, and then we have the information centre to the right hand side. Each time we switch it, it will give us a different lot of information, including things like gear change assist. We have sport chrono, which is linked to the stopwatch up here, okay. We then have tyre pressure monitoring. We have trip data. If we input a navigation destination, it will appear here. We also have the map, the satellite navigation, which we can scroll in and make larger or smaller. Audio. And then we have our temperatures, and we also have our settings here, so we can do oil measurement. If there was any vehicle information regarding maybe flat tyres or broken windows, things like that, that would appear here, which will also then in turn appear on your Car Connect app if you have a car late enough to have that with. We can also change settings in here, so display settings, date, time, lighting, visibility. locking. We can change, for example, the way the doors unlock. We can have mirror retract set on, so that when we lock the car, the mirrors will retract in. As also, if we leave, you might have noticed then, if we leave at a certain menu, it will come up with help to tell us what we're looking at if we're a bit uncertain. On Car Connect there, which isn't highlighted, that's because the car hasn't been connected up with that yet. We can put the car into privacy mode, so if we wanted to drive the car without whoever owns the app not being able to see where we are, we can put the car into privacy mode, but that will alert the phone. On the PCM system, you have a variety of buttons on the bottom here, most of which are fairly obvious, but we'll go through those. If you wanted to input a Car Connect code, you would, on this screen, when you press Apps and Option, go to Porsche Connect Login, and then create new user. And that is where you would enter your 8-digit pairing code, which is on your My Porsche portal. There's a variety of information. You can obviously load Twitter, has information on weather and train and flight departure and arrival times. When we press tuner, it will give us different radio stations which we can preset if we want to. Okay, we can also tune it how we wish, and we can also have stations. At the moment it's currently on FM, but if we press at the top, you'll see that it changes from AM to digital to FM. And again, what we can do is we can select go to list, and we can select which station we might want to save. For example, if we wanted to save something, we would just simply press the station, go back, and then we can store it if we want to by holding it. And that is how you would store a station. On media, this is where you would select information on jukebox, which is the car's hard drive for storing music. When you press source, you would get up to your different areas of audio, which on here is AM, FM, digital, jukebox and Bluetooth. Bluetooth would be music that you have on your phone. Telephone, to connect to a phone, you would go to connect. If you have an iPhone, you would need to go into settings and Bluetooth so that your phone is discoverable. And then when it searches, it will bring your phone up. Just simply press your phone. Your phone will then ask you to pair, which you select pair. It will then ask you if you want to connect your contacts, in which you would press allow. And then the phone is paired. Navigation, if you wanted to search for a navigation, an address, you could just simply put in the address where you want to go, and it will give you some options, and it will narrow down as to where you want to go. So in our case, it might be Harston. And then you would just simply press start, and that's how you would start the navigation. It will also give you information on points of interest and recent destinations. Points of interest being hospitals, railway stations, cinemas, things like that. And recent destinations are fairly obvious. We have some trip data. When you press car, you can swipe across and it will give you differing information on here. And then when you press map, it will obviously bring up the map. If you press the arrow, it will give you north orientation, or it will give you direction of travel. It has an approach sensor, so when your hand goes closer to the screen, it will bring up the lower menu, like so. We can change the way it does a variety of things. It will tell us information on traffic. We can play around with route options if we want to. To change the zoom, we can turn the dial to the right hand side and it will change the screen. We can zoom in using our fingers like an iPad. We can also move it around if we wanted to check the approach to somewhere. We can have a look, and then we can go back to where we are by pressing the trigger hairs. We have an options button here, so on each one of the screens we can press options and it will give us a variety of information. We can play around with the way the map sets up if we want to. We also have a CD drive here, and then then down here we have, I think it's for SD cards, if my memory serves me correctly. Yep, so we have some memory card spaces here. Climate control settings are just here. So we have fan speed on the right hand side, we have temperature control on the left hand side. If the car had heated seats fitted, then the buttons for those would be here. Front windscreen demister, rear windscreen demister, air recycling, air conditioning on, air conditioning max. So in the summertime, if you jump into the car and it's extremely hot, press aircon max, and that will flood the car with cold air as quickly as it can. We then have direction of air travel here, so we have feet, face and windscreen. On the centre console, you'll see there are a few buttons. The buttons will differ from model to model, car to car, depending on the options that it has. For example, this being a GT4, we have a few unique buttons, auto blip being one of them, ESC and ESC and traction control off being the other one. Auto blip, when switched on, will effectively correct the revs when downshifting, which makes the car smoother, equalising the revs, and helps to keep the car effectively stable under sort of changes of load. We then have the active suspension button, which will stiffen up the suspension on the car when you have it switched on. The light will show this as being on and stiffer. We then have electronic stability control off, which is just that on its own. And then here we have electronic stability control as well as traction control off. So you can have either just the ESC off or just the ESC and the traction control together off. We then have the sports exhaust, which is just purely acoustic, doesn't actually add any power, it's just for noise. And then we have the auto start stop. With auto start stop, it's on all the time, but if you press the button, that will mean that it is then switched off. So that will mean that the car will not cut out when you move to a halt, whether you be at a traffic light or you're in maybe traffic congestion. The car can cut out. With the button illuminated, that whole system is switched off. On the steering wheel, we have a couple of stalks on here. So we have indicators, main beam and voice control on this stalk. We then have the cruise control on this stalk. You would push the button in to activate it. When you push the button in, you will see on the display that this button here comes on. When you push the button again, it will switch it off. When you select a speed, the speed will come up on that section there, okay? You would then move it up to resume, down to off, push it away from you to engage it, and to increase speed and pull it towards you to slow the speed down. On the other side of the steering wheel, we then have the wash wipers on here. We can change the speed of the intermittent wash wipe. We then have headlamp wash underneath, and then we have the information stalk just below that, which will amend all the information on the display there. We also have on the dashboard lights, which you have your side lights, you have the lights switched off, automatic, and then you have your side lights and main lights if you did want to have them on auto. On the top where the rear view mirror is, you can see we have a couple of interior lights, so buttons of which you just push on and that will switch them on. And then here you have the button which will switch on the interior lights when you open the door. On the dashboard, you have cup holders on here, which some people forget about. You have one for each side, and they have adjustments here, so if you wanted to put a bottle of water in, which might be slightly bigger, you can play around with the size. And to close it up, you just push it in, and the same on this side as well. And that's spring loaded. Glove box underneath, and in the UK market we have vehicle tracking fobs, which are monitored by Vodafone. They do the 24-hour surveillance and they run the accounts on this model. And these will need to be in the car when you are driving it, but you cannot leave them in the car when you're not driving it if you subscribe. You'll notice that when you take them out of these plastic packs, there is nowhere for you to pin them to your keys, and that is done deliberately. You also inside, you might just be able to see, we have got a USB slot, and on some models there'll be a jack for AC as well. On the centre armrest, there's a small button on the side which you can push in with your thumb or finger. You might just be able to see that there is an auxiliary USB slots in there. If you plug that in, on some models you'll have Apple CarPlay as part of Porsche Connect, and that will obviously feed through into the satellite navigation. If you plug it in, again on some models of Cayman and Boxster, it will give you the option as to whether you want to run the car, run the phone like an iPod for music, or if you want to just have it plugged in as a phone for Apple CarPlay. Finally, underneath the front luggage compartment, there are a couple of points of interest under here. You have the windscreen washer fluid bottle, which is located under there. Underneath this cover here, you have got your battery, and on some models, the compressor is also located under there as well. To remove this cover, you just basically put your fingers into those two side sections there, and then pull it out, and it will release from under here. When you put it back, just need to make sure that you put the rubbers back over the top of the plastic so that it creates the right seal. To the side in here, you've got your locking wheel nut key, towing eye, and compressor, again on some models. Also have your warning triangle, and obviously you have your luggage compartment there for putting additional storage in. I hope you found that helpful. If you have any other questions, please either drop me a comment or contact me direct. Thanks for your time.